Well, welcome back to the Sean Trey Show. I have a special guest with me today. Now, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Sure thing. My name is AleMor, and I'm originally from Colombia, and I am a singer-songwriter.
Well, that's awesome. Now, how did you get into music? Let's go back to the beginning.
I think music got into me first when I was younger. You know, I didn't really have to make an effort to get into anything. It was just kind of like a part of me. And then I grew up and I became this adult, I guess, that was very worried about financial stability. So I kind of like put music to the side, thinking that wasn't going to bring me that for a while. And then I realized that my soul was being crushed every time I would wake up and not do what I actually wanted to do, what was in my heart. So I made a decision, and then I just decided to do music for the rest of my life. And that was like 7 years ago or 8 years ago.
That's awesome. And I love that statement that music kind of, you didn't find music, music found you.
Yeah.
It gives me this visual image. I'm a filmmaker and musician, and I love the idea of, like, one of the things that I love about movies, and I wish we had that more in real life, was the soundtrack. Because, you know what I mean? Like, we're going through life, and I wonder if, like, somewhere out there's someone watching the story of us, and what would the soundtrack be? And I tend to feel that I tend to believe personally that somewhere there is a music that pervades, that's a kind of around us, you know what I mean? And the beauty is we get to choose what we put on, you get to choose what that soundtrack is for your life that day. Right. But some places and some cultures, music just kind of is part of life. I have a bunch of Brazilian friends, and I love capoeira. And one of my friends, Filipos, came onto the show, and music is just an integral part of the art of capoeira and the dance and such. Do you think that your upbringing was more musical than most, or was it just?
I think my family is very musical.
Yeah.
And I used to. My grandfather would always put on boleros when I was really little. So I grew up listening to that. I remember being like maybe 5 or 6 and listening to all sorts of beautiful music. And on my mom's side, my great grandfather was a violin player, but I never met him. But music was always something that was there, that was present. I'm actually the first musician. I'm going to say professional musician in my family, because there are musicians in my family. They just didn't follow that as a career. But music was very present all the time. And even if it wasn't because my family would make that presence, I would do it myself. I would, put something on somewhere or create something somewhere. I feel like you can find sounds in everything,
Yes. Yes.
So,
did you ever see that? Sorry, side note, but you hit on a really interesting, cool thing. Did you ever see the Björk movie Dancer in the Dark?
No, I did not.
It's so sad. It's so sad, but it's one of the most beautiful movies. And one of the parts that's really special in that is this character that Björk plays is going blind. But yet she has this musical relation to the world. And so just these sounds that she hears around her, they mix into this beautiful symphony. And so it is this amazing musical, but it's a musical based on the sounds of everyday things and how they can become so musical. You have to check it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
we'll check it out.
It's definitely one to check out. What music feeds your soul? What do you kind of gravitate towards?
I gravitate towards jazz a lot. A lot. I gravitate towards boleros, obviously, because it's what I listened to when I was younger. Um, anything, anything that is authentic and real, and
Nice.
like irreverent a little bit, a little rebellious.
Oh, tell me more there. Explore that topic. You can't drop that one without going down that path.
Well, I mean, I love, for example, the whole history behind Queen, for example,
Okay.
where they did so many things that were so different and that were so out of the box, and that so many people criticized before they saw the success that they had. And that's it's so inspiring, because my music is a little different, and I have a spoken word song in my EP.
That's awesome.
And people are like, "What is this? You're not singing." I'm like, "Right, I'm not." So it's been very, very inspirational, because I know of, and I could be totally wrong. There aren't many women that have done that in the Latin music industry. And so it's like, hell yeah, like I'm going to be, like, of course I can like pave this road for maybe other women that are coming after me that want to do something like that,
That's awesome.
So anything that's different and that dares to be different, and that pretty much says like F you to any kind of society standard is an inspiration for me. And I think jazz did the same thing.
Jazz is the same thing. There was this great visual image I saw that was like this historical image, and it was like, what's destroying music? And it listed starting in like 14 something, and it just listed, and it was like the piano, and because it's like when the piano was introduced, people were like, it's destroying music, and then the violin, when it was introduced, people were like, what is this new instrument? We don't like. But now we think of them as absolute standards. But the truth is that at some point in time, someone created something new, and people absolutely were like, what is this? We don't like it. I don't want to hear it. But yet it was this thing of absolute beauty, but it took bravery. It took courage to introduce it, and it took that rebellious spirit to break through. So I love it.
Yeah. Thanks. I think it's important,
For
it's
sure.
important to do those things, to step out of the box and to become uncomfortable and to take criticism and like not care.
Right. And I think that's something that a lot of people that come up and are finding their place. Because like one of the things too is like, whether it be music or film or any type of the arts, people want to categorize. Let's find a box that you fit in. And you're like, well, I don't fit in the box. And it's challenging for people to kind of approach that, like, well, are you this? Are you this? Both. Why not?
I think that's just like I believe that's a human condition, I think, one, we're super scared of change. We're very resistant to it. Ironically, it's the only constant. So it's like,
right?
I'm like, we're always changing, but we're so scared of it, and then it's that what you said about having this necessity to put people in their box, because I guess like if you can classify someone or something, then you feel like you understand it, and then it's not scary because it's not unknown. And I think that it happens in music, and it happens in everything. It happens in, I'm sure, like if I visit other countries, and that's happened to me before, where people don't know how to place me. They're like, you speak really good English, but your skin is kind of like olive, but you're not black. So, it's kind of like this whole thing, and I'm like, it's okay, I can just be me, and we can be friends. You don't have to put me in a box, So it's interesting. It's interesting to kind of see it from that perspective.
Totally. Now, as when did you really, you said 7 years ago, you sort of like, I'm doing this music thing. Was it a tough decision, or was it really straightforward and just like no looking back?
Um, it was no looking back because I was finally happy with what I was doing.
Nice.
But in the moment, it was scary.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like unknown that, I didn't learn. I didn't know if I was gonna succeed. I didn't know if I was gonna end up having to like pick up a job waiting tables later, or I didn't know. So, but I just remember. I remember feeling. I was very tired, and I remember my feet hurting a lot. I was working at a retail store, and I was selling, unnecessarily expensive clothes to people. And I was not happy with it. And I had been standing for like 13 or 14 hours, and my feet hurt so bad. So I remember when I was clocking out one night, I thought, I don't want my feet to hurt because of this. I don't want this to be the reason. Like if my feet are going to hurt, they have to hurt because I've been performing all night, or I was at like a red carpet with some really uncomfortable heels, or, it has to be a reason that nourishes my dream and what I want to achieve. And after I had that thought, I think like a couple of weeks later, I put in my 2 weeks. And, and I just said, you know what, whatever, I'm just going to figure it out. Like, it's going to be fine. And yeah, but that takes a lot of courage,
Tons. It reminds me of that scene in The Matrix. Do you want the red pill or the blue pill?
Absolutely. Yes.
And I think that the majority of people take the pill to kind of go back toward normality, what they feel is safe. Because, and I'm not judging that. There are people that is what they want. But for me, I've always been that person that's like, can I have 2 of these instead? You know what I mean? It's like, can we get going faster? I want a stronger dose. And to me, like, I had a similar situation where I was in LA and I had been working in the film industry, and I just wasn't able to drum up any work. It was, after the economic crisis hit in 2008, and things in LA, a lot of the music had left, and a lot of the movies had left. They were going to shoot in Atlanta and other places, and I was just like, I was kind of figuring things out. And there was one day that I was like thinking about, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay here, or do I peace out and move back overseas? And I had that call that came, and it was just this, this job that I was like, and I fell through, and I was like, all right, let's do this. And I got everything packed up. I bought a ticket. I got a dog crate. I brought my puppy with me. I wasn't leaving her behind. And we flew halfway around the world. And like the universe filled in the rest. Right. It was really like, it was like absolute synchronicity. Like it was meant to be. But it still took courage. It still took that courage to try. Now, what I watched a bunch of your music, preparing to talk to you, and you do have a lot of jazz, but you have styles across the board. What are some of your musical inspiration?
Artist-wise, you mean?
Artist-wise, or let's start with artist-wise. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we can move into what inspires you.
Okay. Well, there's this singer-songwriter from Uruguay. His name is Jorge Rexel, and he is a big inspiration for me. Nice. His way of painting pictures with the language is so, it's beautiful, and his way of talking to you about what's going on, and it's so it almost feels palpable. It almost feels like I can touch it, like I can feel like it's here, like it's present when I listen to his music. It would be an honor for me to write anything with him, or to perform together. That would be amazing. So he's a big
Put those
inspiration.
intentions out there. Put that out there, man.
Yeah. When I perform with him, I will be very happy.
I love that. There you go.
But yeah, he's a big inspiration, and I think it's funny because the reason why he inspired me so much is because he uses his motivation is life. It's just things that happen in life, or the things you think about, and that's what inspires me. I feel like inspiration is everywhere. You have to have your eyes open.
Yes.
And your heart open too. I remember it was a Sunday, and I was with my fiance in the car.
Yeah.
And we were driving to a Whole Foods, and we were going to park. And we had to run into Whole Foods, gather a few things, and then head over to a gathering. Everything was just like it was a rushed Sunday.
Whole Foods is always rushed.
I mean, yeah, but it was like a moment where like we had like 15 minutes to get the things we needed, and then get back in the car, and then go do this, and it was a rushed Sunday. And when we were in the parking lot, there was a couple that was in the complete opposite of rushed. They were just taking their sweet time to walk from the car to the Whole Foods, and they were like grabbing the cart, and they seemed like they were having such a beautiful moment, just going grocery shopping, And I saw that, and in Spanish, there's a word that describes the word is parsimonia, and parsimonia means that you can do it's an adjective. Or I guess it could be a noun too, but it's like you do everything with chill. You're just very calm. You're not rushed at all. And I thought how beautiful it is to give that to someone.
Yes.
To give that moment of like not being rushed, to share that with a partner or with a friend, or, because in the end, the only thing we can't get back is time.
Yeah.
So I thought about that, and I was like, oh my God, like how special to give this to someone, to give that moment of not being rushed and just share it with that person. And then I remember getting home after my rushed Sunday and writing a song about that,
That's beautiful.
And I'm excited. It's going to be on the next album, and it's so cool that it just kind of, it just kind of comes through. I don't know, just kind of appears, and I just have to manifest it.
I think so. I think that if you can be open, those beautiful stories, they're always around us. I remember once I was writing, and just that it reminds me of almost like Amelie, where if you can have that childlike innocence to just look at the world differently, you can see a much more rich place. And the beauty of that is of music is to share music. I think more so even than film, music shares this beautiful inner experience. And that if for a moment we can have that empathy to kind of bridge that gap between us and these other people. I remember one moment that like you had described, I was on a train in London, and we left London and heading out to the countryside where I was staying out near Reading. And it was a hot day, really hot. And the train was just swelteringly hot, and the windows were, only open like just this little bit, and everyone inside was just like, it was a father with what had to be about a 3-year-old child on his lap, just holding, and the baby was asleep. And I watched this man for an hour on that train, just blowing cool air onto his child, onto the baby. An hour. It wasn't, and he just, and it wasn't that he just did it. He did it with this smile, and he just was smiling down at his baby. And I was just like, in what you described of that couple, it just reminded me of that story. These moments that we have that should be shared. should be absolutely shared. And I think that good music does that. And so it's really beautiful to hear that inspiration that you shared. What type of message do you want to include in your music? And I'm sure it's different from song to song.
Yeah, but I think the overall message is to cherish your emotions, no matter what they are. I think it's a big gift that we're alive.
100%.
You know, and I think in the I don't know how to say this in English, and how mundane life can be in the everyday, we kind of lose the reality that life is so fragile. You know, I think maybe not we, but I find myself in moments like worrying or getting upset over things that are not important, you know? And then I catch myself in that moment. I'm like, you know, one day I'm not going to be alive and none of this shit is going to matter. You know?
So true.
So then very quickly I'm like, it's fine. I don't have time to be upset over someone putting me off. You know, it doesn't matter. I don't have to give them this much power. So I want that message to be the overall one where it's like, one, you're alive, and two, every single emotion that you have is a blessing because you're alive.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's the overall message.
And that just comes through in your music. That's beautiful. I love that concept. I remember I was making a video blog with my wife, and I was planning to ride out to the beach on my motorcycle. And it was part of this trip that I just was, you know, wanting to do this with my father-in-law and my brother-in-law. We were just going to all go on these motorcycle ride out to the beach. It's about a 3-hour ride. And we rode out there, and midway through, I witnessed a horrific accident. And I was one of the first people on the scene. And I had studied medicine in the States. I dropped out of medical school. My mom loved that. But I still had enough training that I could help out, you know, and I was just immediately I went into helping stabilize people's head and neck, trying to focus on keeping people conscious, doing what I could to kind of help. And it took about an hour for an ambulance to arrive. It was a long time. And, you know, and again, a lot of other people came around, but I kept doing my part. And I then, you know, the ambulance came and we were able to go on our way. And I still had another hour to ride, you know, until I got to see my wife and daughter. But the second we arrived at the beach and they were already there, they had taken a bus out, not a bus, but like a tour bus. And I hugged them. I didn't talk. Went in and gave both of them the biggest hug I could. And they were like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, life is precious. And so it's so beautiful when people can convey that through music, through art, because I think we tend to forget that.
Yeah.
What do you do? And it's not music related, but what do you do to help remind yourself of that?
I have this really cool ritual that I started a few years back where I write a gratitude list almost every day. So I think that keeps me very on my toes about what I have. I think you can never run out of things to write down. You know,
that's so true.
I could, you know, just having like all 10 of my toes is something to be grateful for. You know, or like all my 10 fingers and like having 2 eyeballs at work.
Yeah.
And having my sense of smell that I lost at a moment because I had, you know, when I caught COVID, I couldn't smell anything. And I was like, oh, it's terrible. But, you know, like, be grateful for things like that because they're a part of our everyday, we kind of take them for granted. So that's something that keeps me in check. Also, I have the I have chosen a partner that is incredible. And he's always just like aware and awake. And whenever there's a moment where he kind of sees me like worrying about stuff that doesn't matter, he's like, hey, remember, none of this is going to be here one day. And then I'm like,
beautiful.
oh, right, you know? And we kind of do that for one another. So that's very special. I have like some pretty solid tools in my belt.
You do. You have to have that. And having my wife does the same for me. She's like reality check constantly. And my wife is a singer as well. She was the first winner of Vietnam Idol, and she's a firecracker. And she doesn't let me ever take myself seriously though as well, which I love. It's like, because we have to remember what's important, and that's just so true. Now, with your journey of music, are there any areas of music that you would like to explore more? Are there any styles that you would like to try?
I think I would like to write a song in French.
Ooh.
I speak French, but I don't feel like it's in my body enough for me to be able to write a song that's up to my standards. Mm-hmm. So I think that's my next challenge as far as like that part of music. Now, as far as trying out a different genre, I feel like country music is a challenge for me. Ooh. Just because I have to think so much about my accent.
Yeah.
In order to do it properly. I feel like I have to really be careful with the way that I pronounce every word. And I don't feel like I have a very thick Miami accent, but it's there. So, I can hear it. I've heard other people talking. I'm like, thank God I don't speak that. But I feel like that would be a challenge.
And I respect that. I was thinking when you were talking about kind of like stepping outside the box, one of the people that pops up for me constantly is Beyonce. And how she just, she does what she wants on her albums. It's like, and then she had the country song that just knocked it out of the ballpark. And it was like, I can imagine that many singers would sit down and go, this is what I want to do. And there's always going to be those people who go, but why? But why? And those people are the death of creativity. And I understand their points, though. I understand, appealing to your fan base and keeping people happy. But yet, sometimes that can be suffocating. For my wife, she's a huge jazz fan. Big time. But there's no market for jazz in Vietnam. And so right now, she had told me some of her idols, like with this French duo, Barton Baker, that do these awesome swing, electro swing stuff. And so I was like, well, I'm going to talk to him on the podcast. And we brought him on and we had this awesome conversation. And I was like, hey, you guys want to collaborate? And they're like, we would love to. And so now she's just like, are you kidding me? So she's like, yeah. So I put together for her, I laid the foundation, but I not laid the foundation. I opened the door. And so she's now going to do this, like this Broadway-esque show with all these swing numbers and film the whole thing. And so it's awesome. Like essentially it's a super, I felt so cool about it. And but the idea is like, it might fall flat here, but who cares? It's what she feels passionate about. You can't just do things for numbers. You have to do what feeds your soul. And I think that's so important to try. Now, what do you do to feed your creativity? What are the places that you go to kind of find inspiration for? You want to come up with a new song. What are some of the things that you do? I don't think I go anywhere specific. I think I just kind of become more aware of where that motivation is. As we said earlier, it's like everywhere. Yeah. Yes.
So I kind of, when I want to write a new song, I'm like, okay, well, today I'm going to look for that motivation. Okay. If I find it, anywhere or with anyone, cool. And if I don't, that's okay. We'll just look for tomorrow. But I don't think I go to a specific place.
Do you have a routine for your writing that you do, or is it just anywhere and everywhere?
That's anywhere. Now with tools like this, I can be anywhere and I can just open a note and I can start writing and I can record a voice note very quickly and then it's there and I don't have to try and remember it when I get home, which is amazing.
Were you classically trained? Did you go and do vocal classes? Did you train on the piano or the instruments, or?
I did. I actually went to my first vocal class, my vocal lesson was when I was 12.
Okay.
And I was in a magnet school here in Miami.
Okay.
And then I auditioned for an art school. It's called New World School of the Arts.
Okay.
And I went into that, and that was all of my high school. So
nice.
All of high school, I received classical training.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really funny because not a lot of people know that. So sometimes...
What type of stuff were you learning there? I mean, were you doing like arias and things like that?
Yeah. It's really cool because now none of that is in my music. And I think it would be really cool to incorporate some of those things.
That'd be awesome.
Because it's there, and for me, I feel the human body is fascinating. And as a singer, as a vocalist, that's your instrument, right?
Yeah.
So there are so many different placements that alter your sound so much by just like moving one muscle. I think that's amazing. That's something that I'm very passionate about. So it's cool because you asked me if I'm classically trained, and I am. And I haven't sung an aria in, I don't know, maybe like 12 years or something like that. But I know that if I were to do it now, my body would automatically remember the placement and the technique and everything.
I was blown away by, my wife took me to this one teacher here who was a Vietnamese lady, but she was trained in the French style. And she's so technical. And I grew up singing, I grew up singing in gospel choirs when I was a kid. And it was big sound, and it was big sound versus this was like, and was blown away by, she's like, move this just right here, and the sound is now traveling. And I was just like, oh, it sounds so different. It was mind blowing to see that you could get these subtle differences in resonance. It was really interesting. And so I was just like, I wish I'd have been classically trained. But it just didn't happen. But it's really interesting when I meet people who are, because there is just such this. You ever the saying, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and especially in music, the people that came before that refined the talent and the craft is just so amazing. Yeah. So you get to you finish up high school. Where did you go from music? Where did you go from there for your music? I
went to Berklee College of Music.
I took some classes at Berklee. I love it.
Nice. I was there for like a semester.
I took online, so.
And then I went back home I came back to Miami.
Yeah.
And then I tried it again after a couple of years, and it was so expensive.
It's crazy expensive.
It was so expensive, and I was like, I don't think I want to get into all this debt.
That was one of the things that I wanted to, there was actually a student loan expert that I'm trying to get on the podcast that I want to talk to, because one of the challenges in the US is the amount of debt people get into following their dreams. And I don't know if it's necessary. You know what I mean? Like, especially with the internet now. I mean, there is so much information out there that people have access to. And I did one class at Berklee. It was fun, but I was like, it was all, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. It was really, some of it was really interesting, but I don't know if it was interesting enough for the amount that I had to pay.
Right.
And
Right.
so I was like, wow, this is phenomenal information, but yeah, is it needed to follow your dream? You know?
I feel like maybe back in the day, like maybe when my grandparents or my parents were applying to go to school, you knew that if you wanted to be a lawyer, you had to go to Harvard because the library in Harvard had all of the books that had all the information that you needed. And that's what you were paying for. You're paying for information.
Yes.
But now there are like scanned versions of those books online.
All of it.
You know, you can find anything. So I feel like maybe what a school structure would provide is the discipline
and pacing, you know.
But if you are someone that can self-teach, there's no need to pay all that money, in my opinion.
I'm understanding. You know, I'm a creative person. I want to be following the creative arts, and I know that when there's a will, there's a way. And I firmly believe that, you know, you can't let. I think that we have to take risks in life, and that risk can be simply walking away from a job. It can be you stepping outside of a box that someone tries to put your music in. Like, I want to hear more this spoken word song. I'm going to go look this one up. Or it's not out yet, though. It's on the next. On the next album. It is.
It is. It's out. It's on the first album already. It's already out.
I'm going to go listen to that.
Yeah. If you look up AleMor, you'll find it.
AleMor. I will look it up. I really loved. There was one song that I was listening to that I really enjoyed. It was Deseo cover, and it was shot vertically. And just a really artistic video. It was really nice. How do you pick a song? Like, how do you really, you know, go, this is something I want to put on my album? Because I'm sure you write more than what gets picked.
Yeah. I think you just kind of feel it. I think the more emotional relevance it has, then the more likely it is to be on the album.
Nice.
But I don't think I like choose.
It's not like it's more impressionistic. It's more of
it's more like a play by ear kind of thing. Like, okay, well, this one feels this way. I like this one here. I like this one there. Sometimes you can't put all of them because you don't have the budget for all of them.
Understand that.
Yeah. I mean, if it was up to me, my EP that I released this year, it would have had more than 5. But and it's okay. I'm so happy with it. I'm so happy with it. And I'm more than honored to have had it receive a nomination, you know?
Yeah, that was. I want to talk to you about that. What was it like when at that moment when you heard that you were nominated? I
still feel like butterflies in my stomach when I think about it. And I still wake up in the morning and remember.
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm like, God, we got nominated, you know, and then it's like I remember and I experience it all over again. Yeah. I was just filled with gratitude. You know, I was filled with gratitude mainly because there are a lot of well-known entities that don't necessarily cater to real music.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Recording Academy, because it is the Recording Academy, it really has given the opportunity for independent artists like me to be nominated in a category where I'm the only independent artist. Everybody else is backed up by a label.
That's huge.
So it's such an accomplishment and it's such an honor that, you know, I didn't have to have the big team of like this huge, like a big Sony or like a Warner to back me up in order to get nominated. It was just solely because of the music.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. It's like a double win,
Yeah.
It's like, and what made it even more special was on the document, it had my name, the album name, and then underneath it, usually it puts the name of the label. But the label is my company. So it was like my name, my album name, and then the name of my company. And I was like, oh yeah, this is amazing. It was really, that's what makes it even more special.
That's so, like, that's awesome. Because
Mm-hmm.
you hear about people who, and I respect everyone who gets any type of recognition, but when you hear people who are, let me frame it this way. When I watch a sports movie, I love the underdog story. The people who, like Hoosiers or something, because it's like the David versus Goliath. To hear about you winning, or the getting nominated, and you have this doing it independently. That to me is just so huge, because there are systems that are in place that are supporting, like armies that are supporting some of these other artists, like literal huge numbers, and you had you and your core team, and it's like, to me, I have, in all of my creative career, met some of the most amazing people that don't always get recognition.
Mm-hmm.
I know so many actors. My friend Trez, I'm going to give a little shout out to Trez, is one of the most hardworking actors I know, but he still has a day job. And he doesn't quit on himself. He hustles and he puts his heart into everything. And he's always texting me, Sean, I got this idea. Sean, I want to practice something. Sean, I want to do this. And I hope, and like, I pray for myself. I send up prayers to the universe. Can you help me create this? He's someone that I send up prayers for too, because he's such a special, beautiful individual. And, I feel like more of those, and that was my motivation with this podcast, is like, I want to tell people stories because they're beautiful. They are so beautiful. And we don't always have a platform to hear them. And granted, I love hearing stories of other individuals, but the world is not this tiny, small group of people. It's this beautiful garden of all types of flowers, and it's like, I feel like we're always offered roses, and granted, those roses are beautiful, but there are all of these other types of flowers that have some smell, some don't, all different range of colors. Mm-hmm. And so that's just kind of my perspective.
That's awesome, though.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope so. And though, I gotta say this, I feel really excited about one thing. I had my friend Philip come on, and he talked about how his passion project is, he was born of trauma. He was born of violence, and one of his documentary that he's trying to do is to look at children that are born from, a violent act or situation, and he's making a documentary about it. And he had never talked about it. He'd never talked about it publicly, like his own experience. He'd never mentioned it. He came on the podcast and talked about it, and this woman emailed him about how this experience helped her. And it had nothing to do with me. All that I did was create a place where someone else could talk. Right. And I was like, win. Yeah. Did something right. Because, maybe I can't save the world, but I can sure as hell try to make it a better place. Mm-hmm. And, whether people are doing that, and I want other people to try too. And there was this great story about Mother Teresa. And all of these actors from Bollywood came to talk to her, and they were like, here you are, like, really helping people. You are doing work with the poor, and she ran the community for the lepers and for women in India. And these actors are like, what do we do? And she's like, you teach people about empathy. And, and that is as important about as anything else. You help people realize that they're not alone. And I think that's an integral part of music.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you could go back in time and not change things. We're not creating some Loki type situation here, but go back in time and give your younger self some advice. What type of advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell her to not give up, no matter what. There were a bunch of times where people said no, or even worse, a bunch of times where I questioned myself and I, thought twice about continuing. Like, should I keep going with my music? And I think just the only advice, like you said, I wouldn't change anything because all the mistakes that I made have brought me to where I am.
Yeah.
And I've made peace with all of them, Mm-hmm. So I think I would just tell myself that, like, hey, just keep going. You're going to be fine. You're going to get a nomination at 32. You're okay. Just keep going.
Don't quit. Do it. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Mm-hmm. Now, if you kind of had like Aladdin's lamp and you could create anything you wanted, what would you wish for? What would you like to create?
Oh,
and this is a wish for yourself. I mean, granted, we would all want to wish for world peace and to end hunger and things stop war, but this is for you.
Okay, a wish for myself.
Yeah.
It's a tough question. It's a tough question because I think I have everything that I wish for already. But I think I would love to have, if I could wish for anything, I would wish for a space where I could record with like the highest quality equipment and the highest quality musicians.
I love that.
Yeah, I think, and I would love to have a place where music can be elevated with the best of everything.
That is an awesome wish.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. Now, do you have any last thoughts that you'd love to share with people watching about music or finding their inspiration? What would you like to share?
My partner shared this with me a couple of, I think like a year ago. I'm going to get a little vulnerable here. So I'm
going to try to safe space.
Safe space. Thank you. I had this weird complex with my legs. I have very, not very, but I have, I'm Latina. I have hips and I have thighs. and I used to feel very self-conscious about wearing shorts.
Interesting.
So I had this complex with my legs, and I shared this with him, and he said to me, you are as young as you're ever going to be. And then that kind of, it hit me, and I was like, wow, he's right. So I put on the shorts that day. And ever since, anytime that I have like this thought about maybe wearing one thing or another, if I feel happy and if I feel good in it, then I'll just wear it, And that sounds very superficial because it's about wearing shorts, but
it's not.
But it's not. I feel like we have second thoughts about a lot of things, and again, we don't realize that the only thing we can't get back is time.
Yeah.
So my last, my final reflection would be, to remind everyone that today is as young as you're ever going to be. So whatever it is, that thing that you're thinking twice about doing, just go do it. Just go do it. Yeah.
That is beautiful advice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise. Likewise. Hopefully we can do it again soon.